All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our second episode of the InkPod podcast. It's a new year, 2024. I hope it's off to a great start for all of you. We have here today Sean and our first ever guest, Andy from DTF SuperStore. Thanks for joining us, Andy. So obviously, new year. Let's kick it off. Hopefully it's a good one for everybody. How are we doing for New Year's resolutions? Sean, anything cooking?
I mean, 2023 was big for us. It was a big year. A lot of changes in the business and got engaged. So that was really fun. Sage is growing up. So I think it's just being more consistent, right? Keep doing the same of what we're doing and enjoying the journey, right? Because it's hard to see the end goal when you're just focused on it. So keep enjoying the journey and keep grinding. I think that's the goal for New Year's. Keep doing it. What about you, Andy? Got anything special going on?
Professionally, our big thing is transitioning from Chinese based printers to Mimaki Japanese printers and domestically produced products. That's kind of our big goal professionally.
And what about personally?
Personally, I could lose 30 pounds.
I was going to say, personally, continue to survive in the DTF space. I think that's a good New Year's resolution.
My resolution or my wife's? My wife's in.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, this is a big year for me. This is I got a trifecta of New Year's resolutions. So trying to do one, touch on your point, Andy. I've had my all my focus on the business, improving the business side of me, and this year I want to focus on myself on the fitness side. So it's been a while since I've really focused on getting in shape and doing a podcast with Sean every single week and seeing that physique has kind of inspired me to get into the gym. So that's going to be one of them. Second one, I just wanted to try something new this year. It's one of my main focuses, and I think the podcast is the perfect thing to do that. Try something new, be consistent. It's one of the reasons why I said I need to have a partner in this, because if I ever find myself slacking, I'll have Sean there giving me a little boost. So make sure that I'm on it. And
keep you accountable.
Yeah. And thirdly, kind of to what you were saying, Sean, being a new father, I'm also, a new father, 8-month-old, and also newlywed. I mean, I've been married now for about a year, almost 2 years. So finding a better work-life balance, that's a big one for me. I kind of get consumed by work, and I think it's time to really start to transition, think smarter, delegate better, and spend more time with family. So that's my, I got a lot of resolutions I'm working on. So awesome. Well, now that we're all off to a good start in 2024, Andy, most people in the industry already know you. I consider you to be, one of the founding fathers / godfather / early adopter of DTF. So for those of our listeners that aren't familiar with you or your business, do you mind just introducing yourself, your company, and kind of talking about some of the future plans for your business?
My company is DTF SuperStore. I don't know that I'd say that I'm the godfather or founding member of DTF. We just kind of rode the wave with everybody else. Late 2020 or so, the writing was on the wall that DTF was the hot new thing, and we jumped on it. Here in the USA, there was definitely a need for domestic support and domestic product. I guess not really domestic product, but domestic product in a warehouse here. So that's kind of our story. We were in DTG, and it was an easy transition over. We already knew the RIP software. We already knew the printing processes. And we just moved over to DTF.
Awesome. You kind of touched on it earlier. Like us, we've been in DTF now, I think it's around 3 years now, and we felt like we had to jump in. If you look at our product offering at RV Digital, we generally try to work with, the gold standard OEM suppliers of any new tech. Unfortunately, China, they're quick to move. They design something today, they produce it tomorrow, and they start selling it the next day. And expect the end users to kind of do the R&D for them and figure it out. So although we would have loved to wait for Mimaki or Epson or Brother or one of the big players in the space, that would be a natural fit for them to add DTF to their portfolio. We just couldn't sit on our hands and wait. We saw people starting to import direct and struggle, or machines coming up from.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Sean's a perfect testament. We'll jump into that, but when it comes to your trials and tribulations with the Chinese equipment, and now obviously the very aggressive approach you've taken with Mimaki, as we have as well. Why don't we maybe touch a little bit on that? What did you start with importing? How was that experience? And, why have you partnered with Mimaki, and why do you see yourself moving in that direction moving forward?
Well, early on, our first printers that came in were Auric. We brought some Aurics in. They were large. They were expensive to ship. And somewhere in there, a lot of end users were using Oddly. That's kind of how Oddly came about, because we were getting good feedback on those printers. So yeah, we were jumping in with both feet. So I bought, I think it was 50 or 60 Oddlies up front. We bought like 4, brought them in. Everything seemed good. So then we bought 50 or 60 more. And for the most part, they were pretty good. One thing with DTF you have to remember is everybody's working off of what's the best currently available. So maybe it's not the perfect solution, but hey, if you want to be in DTF, this is what we got. This is the best possible. Is there hassle? Yes. Is there pain in the ass? Yes. But if you want to be in DTF and you want to ride that wave, you have to deal with those things. So yeah, we started with Auric. We hit pretty hard with Oddly, and man, we had some rough points. There was probably 20, 30 Oddlies end up in the dumpster out back because they had various issues, but that was the name of the game. If you wanted to be a DTF and be an early adopter, you had to accept that.
Yeah. Sean knows all about DTF machines ending up in the dumpster.
And it comes to me like question as a supplier, like us as end users that bought direct from, like, we imported Chinese machines, right? We bought 2 because we're like, if one breaks, at least we're going to have something else to spare parts, something like that. But it wasn't even that. It was trying to find support like over there. I don't speak Chinese. I don't speak Mandarin at all. So for me to stay up at night and like talk to them, and they were just repeating the same thing. I think they were using Google Translate, or I don't know what they were using.
Yeah, they definitely use Google Translate.
It wasn't working at all. And I was like 3 sleepless nights of trying to understand them. So I'm wondering, like you guys as suppliers that had to import those machines, did you have Chinese text? Like, how were you working with that? Did they have people over there? What was the solution for that?
No, we ran into the same thing. And the problem you run into is Oddly, the Oryx, of everybody in the world, they're integrators. So they're buying Hosun's off, or there's 2 or 3 boards out there, and they're buying them, and then they're building a printer around it. So you're not even talking to the guy that knows the very deep down, low level code to these things. It's not like, Mimaki will hand you a service guide that shows all the error codes and, hey, if this happens, then you do this and replace this. You don't get any of that. And so we were kind of left out in the open. Well, if we can't figure it out, we better just replace it.
Yeah. It's funny. You said, Mimaki's got, these protocols and pamphlets and brochures and parts books. You don't get any of that from China. And, most of my customers, when we deliver something, they'd be like, hey, Zach, can you send me the manual so I can see the maintenance? Or can you send me the parts book? And I'm like, it doesn't exist. They're like, sorry, what do you mean it doesn't exist? I mean, like, we don't have one. We're buying from China. It doesn't come with one. So we'll walk you through all the problems. And, there's some dealers that done a really good job in the US that I've seen. We tried to do them as well in terms of making their own parts books and making their own manuals and maintenance procedures, or making courses. And, it just becomes tiresome. Like, it's nice to just work with the dealer like Mimaki. It's like, okay, here's your maintenance schedule and here's your parts book. And if you have an issue, here's who you contact. And if the dealer's not available, guess what? We're able to support you. So it's definitely a real big breath of fresh air for us. Bringing on the Mimaki, Andy, we started selling at the same time. What is it, like? Is it 3 months now, at least?
It's been a bit.
Yeah.
I know with Mimaki, one thing with them is we got signed up before they even announced a DTF printer. And that was just me looking at how DTG went and assuming people are going to get into it. But one of our first interactions with Mimaki being here with the techs and the sales guys, I asked them point blank, how many machines do you show up and you install and then you have to take back? And they were just like, what do you mean? And I'm like,
I know.
Well, 5% or whatever of our machines, we have to take back because nobody knows how to fix them. And we give the customer a new one. And that just blew them away. They're like, what? You're throwing printers in the garbage? Like that?
Yeah.
That'll never happen with us. Like,
No,
we'll get somebody on the phone that knows the problem, even if it has to be somebody in Japan, and we'll get it resolved.
Crazy.
And they just thought that was completely ridiculous, the idea that you would throw printers in the garbage.
And we had no choice. It's funny when, China, we're bringing these things in, 40-foot containers, right? And depending on the model and the shaker size, you might be able to get like 18 machines in there. And they'd be like, okay, you buy 16, you get 2 free. And we're like, well, that sounds great. Why don't I just get a disc? Let's take that extra 2 machines and just discount it and just bring my price. Like, no, these are the extras for when the other ones break. We're like, oh, this is awesome. And, part of knowing that, this is the first machine I've had to really tailor my sales pitch when I'm selling it. I sell a Tajima, I sell an M&R, I sell a Brother, an Epson. I know when I put it in there, it's going to do what it's supposed to do. And if not, I'm going to make sure it does, or I'm going to pull in the resources. DTF was a different beast in itself. So my sales pitch from day one was, look, this is the best I've been able to find. I'm not promising it's going to be perfect by any means. It can be a bumpy road, and it will be. But what I can tell you is, A, these things print money, and B, when they go down, we're here to support you. And to Sean's point, Sean, it's hard for us to get service, and we're purchasing, a couple hundred units a year, right? So they really don't care about the end user that buys 1, 2, even 4 machines.
They don't even care about the guy that's buying 200 machines a year.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
We'll go back to them and give them a hard time, and they're like, like they act like they care, but in the end, we're on the hook. But the flip side is like you said, that's the best that could be offered. And I have multiple big customers that you get to talking to them at the end of 2022 or into 2023, and they're like, man, I paid 150 or 300,000 in taxes last year. So they made some good money, and those were the people that understood that if I want to get 4 machines running, I better have 5 or 6 in my warehouse because 2 are going to be down all the time.
Definitely. And I think, customers had to take the same position that we did as dealers. So you have a choice. Do you sit on your hands and wait 3 or 4 years for a legit solution to come in that's hassle-free? Or do you play crazy cowboy and try and import yourself? And, you'd be shocked by how many shops I'd walk into that didn't know we were doing DTF yet. And I'm like, oh, you got into DTF? Yeah, but it's not running. Oh, what happened? Well, it ran for like a month and a half, kind of, but, very quickly became a paperweight and I can't fix it. Or 2, the customer's other option is, let me deal with a reputable supplier who knows hopefully what they're doing. And if they don't, I at least know they'll figure it out and they'll have my back. And they had to make the same decision that we did. And those customers, like you said, I have customers that literally I would talk to and they're like, Zach, I paid this machine off in 3 months.
Yeah.
These things print money. If you got clients, it prints money. And it will be like this for the near future, I'd say at least a couple of years, because you'll see it constantly now. Everyone's getting into selling transfers. This is the next gold mine. That market will get saturated in a couple of years. People have their own technology. But for now, I mean, you're making money hand over fist, right? So the customers that got in early, they went through the struggles, they made money, they paid off the machines, and now we're seeing a massive wave of people transitioning to the Japanese technology.
Because you don't have that hassle. You can. We have one customer. They're trading in a one head TXF 150, and man, I think they've maybe had it 6 months. It's got 3,000 hours on it, and they're trading it in because they want the 2-head version of it, and because they have a bunch of 2-heads as well. But they put 3,000 hours on this thing in the last 6 months, and it just doesn't go down. They're running it all day, every day. And you can't get that out of the Chinese printers.
And like for us, that like we don't print transfer sheets, right? We run a shop where we sell custom apparel and then we print. For us, it's not even like how fast can we pay that machine just by printing sheets. It's more by like labor too, right? Building screens, burning screen, mixing ink for screen printing, for vector artwork. It takes a long time. And when you want to do DTG, and DTG for vector artwork is not like, it works if you have a really, really good pre-treat system and all that. But again, do you have the digital line that does all that automatically, or do you have a Polaris, or do you have a Rock Now? Probably not, right? So jumping to DTF for us as shop owners made complete sense. Like we paid that machine not just by selling it transfers, but by labor, by saving on labor too. So even if you're not like a transfer sheet shop, it was massive for us. Like that machine paid within itself in the next 3-4 months. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, I'm sure it's the same thing in the States, Andy, and in Europe and globally. DTF is cannibalizing other methods of print decoration at, in my opinion, an alarming rate. And it's not, printed vinyl, dead. You're doing that? I don't know what you're doing. The cost of your vinyl when you buy it blank. Yeah, so let's just buying the blank vinyl before you print it, cut it, weed it, mask it with labor is more expensive than the DTF product printed, right?
100%.
So printed vinyl, that's dead. We used to sell a lot of the small Mimaki CJV 150/75s, guys that would use it for, printed t-shirts or stickers. That business is really dried up. Unless they're like, you know what, I'm going to get into stickers. I can only afford one machine. I'll kind of do some t-shirts. Fine. So that business is dead. DTG has taken a massive hit. Is it dead? No. I'm still selling a lot of brothers. However, the reason why people are buying them, for the most part, are guys that are into high volume POD, like my business and like what Sean is doing and going to get more aggressive into. That's not going anywhere. DTG is still going to be, in my opinion, king in that space because of the level of automation that you can have. Now, I'm personally working on ways to further automate that process for DTF. It'll get there. There's some time that needs to get invested, and obviously some new technologies that all need to kind of work together. But yeah, DTG's taking a beating. Let's jump over to screen printing, right? I have screen print shops that when I brought the technology in, they're like, no, first off, it's terrible. The quality's terrible. It looks like a transfer, looks like a sticker. Nobody wants. My customers will never buy it. I'm like, really? They're like, yes. And then a year later, they're like, hey, remember that DTF thing you were telling me about? Yeah. Well, everyone's coming to me and wants it. So printers, like a screen printer, like screen printing is an art. Like Sean, you know this. You take so much pride in the hand feel. You take so much pride in the opacity, the vibrancy. But then the end customer doesn't know the difference or doesn't care, or even crazier, they're like, I like DTF. There's no fibrillation. It's super opaque, amazing hand feel. We got guys 60 to 80 industrial washes with no degradation. Like that's insane. The shirts are falling apart and the transfers are holding up, right?
Oh yeah.
So the market of end user either is accepting or prefers DTF, which is pushing printers now to say, hey, I got to bring in that technology and change their mindset. And that's what I'm seeing here in Canada.
And like for shop owners, seeing as another angle, right? It's like for you guys that sell equipment, oh, it's cannibalizing DTG. It's hurting the screen printing market. For us as shop owners, it's actually enabling us to be profitable. So for me as a shop owner, instead of having minimum orders for screen printing of 24, they're now at 72 units. For me to run my press all day at 72 units makes a lot more sense. We're not always up and down tearing jobs, right? And when the press is running, you're making money. So having DTF there enable us to just make more profit down the road. The average shop owner that like screen printing shop in Canada makes a B&F benefit and profit at the end of the year of less than 7.9%. 7.9% of net profit and shops that make over $1 million of sales in a year, there's not a lot. So if you think about it, less than 8% of $1 million is 80 grand, right?
And you have to ask yourself why. Why? You're only making money when your press is printing.
Exactly.
And in screen printing, Andy, I don't know how familiar you are with screen printing, but every single color, you got to shoot a screen. So let's look at this example. This is a good one I use. 3 color 72 piece job. You got to coat the screen, let it dry overnight or throw in a dry vault. Okay. Now you got to shoot the screen. Now you got to wash it out. Now you got to put it on press. Now you got to register the job. Oh, hey, time to start printing. Okay. We run the press for 10 minutes. Okay. It's done. Now let's take it down. Oh shit, we forgot the 2 mediums. Let's put it back on the press again. Let's reset it up. Let's shoot them.
Next week, like, I need one more small because this kid joined the team or whatever.
Yep. It happens all the time. Or we said large would fit, but the largest fit like a medium, so I need these 4 other ones. It's insane. And Sean, I don't know if you've implemented this in your business, but if I was a screen print shop, I'd say, okay, this qualifies as a screen print job. Fantastic. FYI, if you need to add more shirts later on, unless you're willing to pay crazy screen setup charges, or you might say, Sean, I'm not even offering it. Even if you told me it's $100 a t-shirt for that one t-shirt, I'm not going to screen it. So your option is DTF or see you later, buddy. And I think you're going to see more and more shops doing that.
And I mean, it makes sense. The quality of DTF in my eyes, if you're printing vector artwork, right? I'm not talking about image, I'm talking about vector artwork, is as good, if not better, than a really, really nice HSA water-based print. In my opinion, like we print with water-based inks, Mitsui, HSA, whatever, and any vector print that we print with DTF is better, if not as good as an HSA water-based screen print. Okay, when we get into simulated process and halftones and like fades into shirts, obviously screen printing has an edge. It's very similar to DTG when you do that. But you can play in Photoshop with halftones and things like that to get really, really good prints with DTF, right? So for us, and just something to touch back base into like screen printing shops, something crazy like adding DTF for us in our shop enabled us to buy an LTS machine.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds crazy, right? Why would I buy an LTS machine if my screen print jobs went down? The reason why is we're making so much money off DTF that it didn't make sense to have less people in the screen print department burn screens. And then align them. So enable us to spend an extra $2,500 per month to buy an LTS and be on press and up and running because the registration was all done. And that's because our DTF machine is paying for the LTS.
Totally.
Like we don't have enough volume in the screen printing department to justify that purchase. But since we have that extra money, now it's less downtime on the screen printing press. So now we're more profitable with screen printing. So it's things you don't even think about what they enabled us to do as shop owners. And even the clients now, they come in, they're like, oh, I really like this print. And that's what we've done with them before. It's DTF. Like they don't know how big in the market DTF has hit it in the last 3 years. And the quality is outstanding.
And it's funny, Sean, when I saw you making this transition into digital, and he's doing DTF, Andy, just so you know, he's been using the brothers. So after the Chinese fiasco, he's like, okay, well, I love DTF, but I need a more legitimate solution. So he's basically, laying down the sheet on the brother printer, printing CMYK white, hand applying the powder, running it through the dryer, then heat pressing it. Even with all those manual processes, it still made sense for his business. Sean was able to buy a Mimaki DTF from a very reputable vendor, myself, and he's got that coming in by the end of the month. And I think that's news. That's gonna really, I think, take your DTF.
Get the 300 or
of course you got the This guy's top of the line everything. Have you seen his shop? He bought a laser LTS. This is what I was talking about. He bought the Sati LTS, fantastic laser, and he bought that as he's transitioning heavily into digital. So that's why when he bought it, I'm like, sorry, Sean, I'm confused. You know, you're moving more into digital, massively cutting down your screens, and then now Sean, what'd you pay for that thing? Like it's 6 figures, because you also got the coder as well.
Yeah, we got the coder and everything.
How have you dealt with the old school screen print guys with pushback? Because some of the local shops, a friend of mine owns a big shop here in town, and his problem is he's got a screen guy that has been doing this 30 years, and there's no way this guy is going to open a file and burn a screen digitally. Like, how are you a kind of a younger crowd, or do you have some old school people that are fighting the digital a little bit? I know that's
that's fine. I'm really, really, really picky with quality. So if you can burn a screen with a film that can do 81 LPI on screen on mesh and register perfectly, then you can burn screens all day with film, but that's not going to be possible with competing me with an LTS, right? So it's more on quality. Like our dark room are really picky. So our dark room has humidity level in it. We calculate EOM on each mesh. We calculate tension on each mesh. We have automatic coders because we're picky with the EOM on our mesh and what we want to do. So LPIs and halftones and definitions and registration is super big point for us. So if your guy is good and he's really good with film, or like, I don't know, the exposure unit he's using, maybe he's using metal halide exposure unit, he's burning the screen for like 5-6 minutes and he's getting really, really good definition with that. That's like, I know shops that do that. They don't use the ozone in their screens because they want really nice detail and all that. But then when is your press going to run? What's your registration time? For us, it's all about having fun at doing what we want to do with the best quality possible. And that's the mentality in our shop, right? So that's the reason why we switched. Anybody can go and burn a screen now. Like we have our art team sep the screen, it pops up in the LTS, and you just simply choose what mesh you're printing on, and it burns the screen. It takes 2 minutes, and you're like, so for us, it was more about quality, right? When people come in and now it's larger orders because our minimum went up, most of the time they want halftones. Like they want images, and it just doesn't make sense to do it with DTG because they're running a large volume order. So for us, having the LTS, it's more of like redundancy. If my staff is sick or I'm changing staff, anybody can go and burn screen. I don't need to have my guy in a dark room have 30-year experience. So the message is more like, hey, you know what? I really like you. You've been with a team for 30 years, but what happens if you're sick? What happens if you get in a car crash? Like the business can't revolve around you, right? It needs to revolve around everybody else has a salary too, and we want to keep paying them. So yeah, that's the mentality we had.
And I think, two things. One, when Sean says he's picky, I think that's a massive understatement. This guy is insanely obsessed with quality. Like I was there maybe 3 weeks ago. When he purchased the GTX 600, and I actually dropped off my my car to get wrapped by 360, which came out awesome, by the way. I saw these prints he was doing off the Brother machine, and they looked amazing. And then I see him. So they're printed, cured, run through the dryer, and then I see him heat pressing them after with his team. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? It's cured already. He's like, oh yeah, but we're gonna improve how soft this print is. I'm like, shut up. And literally, I go look at the pile, and there's 2 piles, a before and after. And I'm like, okay, so, and I'm touching them. I'm like, sorry, which ones were before, which ones are after? He's like, oh, this one. You don't feel the difference? I'm like, no. He's like, it's a huge difference. I'm like, Sean, no one in the world is gonna notice a difference except for you. So
I do.
Pickiness, I think, is an understatement, which is why I think you've grown so well in the space, is because you have a level that I don't even think is like attainable in the industry. But hence, you're doing it, and obviously you're obsessed with your craft, so that's great. Kudos to you. But one thing that you touched on, Sean, is the redundancy you have now with the LTS and how easy it is to use. But I think that's the main reason why people are jumping into DTF. So
100%.
What I mean by that, you look at screen printing. I go into shops that have been printing for 30 years, and total transparency, they don't know how to print. Screen printing is so complex. It is an art form. You need to dedicate yourself sure, anyone can sling ink on a shirt, But to actually do a good job is a lifelong journey. I think that you're always learning, which is why I love screen printing. I love screen printing. It's like the thing that I'm the most into selling. I love everything about it, from the equipment to the consumables. I'm so interested in the art of screen printing. But you want to start up a screen print shop, no one goes to university to learn how to become a screen printer. It just doesn't exist, right? So you either have to find an experienced screen printer, which is a dying breed, or you need to learn yourself the hard way, and it takes time. Whereas DTF, you guys have capacity, you need more capacity. All you have to do is teach someone how to use a heat press with laser beams that help you line up everything perfectly. So you bring someone in, it's like, okay, load the shirt. This run, you just have to put the design in those 2 crop marks and you heat press it. So anyone can do it. And I think that's why, especially nowadays, where I'm sure it's the same in the States, you can't get labor. It's impossible. It's insane. It's everyone's worst nightmare. Everyone's like, oh, business is great. I'm so happy, doing so well, but I need staff. Zach, do you know anyone? I get like 5 calls a week saying, Zach, can you find me a production manager? Can you find me a press operator? No, I don't. I don't have this like magical, inventory of printers in the back of my warehouse. They just don't exist. And I think that's why we've seen such quick growth. One other reason why we've seen such quick growth in this space, as the challenge, the only challenge really, and dealers are taking care of this, is, the dialing in your consumables, which for us, and Andy, I'm sure it's the same with you, that's the dealer's secret sauce. You could have everyone selling the exact same Mimaki machine for the exact same Chinese thing, but really the ink, the film, the powder, and how everything sings together is the secret sauce. And you obviously need to have a rip. Like when we started bringing the Chinese, Andy, you probably did the same. You started with Flexi, super buggy. You'd have to create a white layer underneath in a separate channel, and then send it to the printer. And then sometimes it would get start printing, and then it would like freeze up, and then the software would get all shot. So luckily, CADLink came in and saved the day. Shout out CADLink. They made my life so much easier, and customers were basically, as dealers now, we bring in the product and we work really hard on profiles. I mean, me and Andy are chatting once in a while. Hey, I finally figured out how to get rid of the graininess in the blue by, doing this resolution. And, there's a lot of work behind that. I don't think people understand that. And that is our secret sauce as the dealer, I think. Looking into this space in the beginning, film. I thought film was just a carrier. So I'm like, yeah, you just want to get the cheapest film possible. The cheaper, the better. All you're doing is transferring the ink. And it's like, it blows my mind as time went on. I'm like, holy shit, film is everything. If you don't got good film, you're not going to get a good release. You're not going to get a good hand feel. You're not going to be able to lay down a lot of ink. You're going to get pooling. You're going to get, banding on it. Like the film is so important.
Is it the film, or is it the pre-treat on the film that actually is the solution for everything? Because it's probably, is it a pre-treat or is it powder? What do they put on the film?
It's a coating, right?
Yeah,
and there's
coating.
There's different thicknesses of coating, and then you have single-sided, you have double-sided. So Andy, I'm assuming you guys do mostly the double-sided film, right?
Yeah, we do mostly double-sided. And the hardest challenge has been batch to batch consistency. And yeah, it's getting better. It's come a long way. Some of what we call V2 film, we'll get a bad batch. I don't know, maybe we got 1 or 2 bad batches all of last year, but it used to be like a complete crapshoot whether or not you got a good batch or a bad batch. We had some European places. We do it better than the Chinese, and yeah, I mean, really,
pay twice as much. That's always the pitch. Oh, for us, you pay twice as much because it's so much better, but it's only cold peel and 30% of it is shot. But yeah, you nailed it. Consistency has been the biggest challenge with the consumables. Realistically speaking, I've probably gone through 8 variations of film, but I've tested maybe 60 or 70. And it's annoying because customers are like, okay, Zach, hang on. There was V1, V2, now V3, now this. Why are you changing it? Well, we're changing it, because we're trying to do better and solve problems. That's why. People are coming with us with problems, and we're trying to solve it. it's been like 6 months of testing, and I think our new Onyx film, which we've been selling into the market with a couple customers and doing the testing over the last 2 months. We have several containers on the way now, but I think that's finally, hopefully, the last film. That's why I didn't call it V1 nothing. I just call it Onyx, because that's it. We don't need no numbers behind it. So we're hoping that, because people look at it and it's like, oh, it's such an inconvenience to me. Well, trust me, it's an inconvenience for me too, because every time we bring in a film, we have to do the profile for every machine in terms of, Mimaki 300, TXF 150, our Falcon, our Eagle, and then for every resolution you have to do it. So it's, my techs hate it. I'm like, hey guys, new film. They're like, oh God, here we go. Like, Zach's just going to put us in here profiling for the next 2 weeks. We don't want to do it. We're hoping that this is our last one. We're phasing out the old film. But yeah, that's been a massive, the powder's, not that big of a deal. I have never had issues with powder. Yeah. I had a lot of issues with ink, I'll tell you that much. Definitely challenges
imported
there. But
ink, you mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Because the Mimaki ink is all going to be controlled with them.
Mimaki's been good. We even cut open bags and put them into Chinese printers, and it's amazing. Smart. It's amazing the difference on how well the Chinese printers perform using Mimaki ink. It's different. Sure. The other thing that we have a uphill battle with is, even in the last year since COVID let up, a lot of Chinese reps have visited us. It's probably the same with Zach. They'll make house calls and they'll show up. Is they always, for American buyers, I don't know about Canadian because you guys are so nice up there, but they're always like, everybody always wants the best price. And I keep instilling them is, I don't care if you charge me $5, $10, $20 a roll more, give me the best quality. Like, don't sacrifice quality for price. And that's kind of been an uphill battle for us, because I don't really beat down our suppliers on price. And I keep saying, like, price matters, but not to the extent of sacrificing quality. So that's kind of what we, the Chinese have been very accustomed to. Oh, Americans just want the cheapest, give us the cheap and dirty. But when you're in there running, Sean, you probably run multiple rolls a day or a week or whatever. Yep. You just can't go down because of a roll of film. You'll gladly pay an extra $20, $30 a roll of film if when I put this on, my guys are going to run all day and we don't have to mess with it.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, like, even my current supplier, they were like, hey, Zach, listen, so we're going to send you the film that you want. Great. But we have 2 other ones. They're not as good, but they're cheaper. I'm like, no, sorry. Listen, I don't care about paying an extra 20, 30%. I don't want headaches for me. I don't want headaches for my customers. And I don't want headaches for my technicians, because my technicians have been getting hammered. Like, there's no tomorrow for the last 3 years trying to navigate these waters. It's been insane. So for me, I'm just like, I want the best and I want nothing else. And that's how I've run my business in every aspect. I want to represent the best consumables, best equipment, best technicians, everything. We want to be number one. That's what it comes down to. And the only way to do that is to have the best. You can't be the best in your industry if you don't have the best technicians, best practices, and best consumables. It's really that simple. You're talking about consistency. Like, you were talking about bad batches. Well, guess what? Sometimes it's not a bad batch. That'd be easy. Hey, you get one. Hey, the whole thing's written off. No, it's, here's a batch, and within the same batch, 20% of it is shot. We had the last issue where it's like, I'm having no problems. Everything's good. And then all of a sudden, everyone's like, hey, Zach, I'm getting these weird speckles in my print. I'm like, oh God, what's going on? Like, everything was so fine for so long. Like, what's going on? And then I reach out to my supplier. I said, hey, listen, I'm having this problem. Have you seen this? Oh, yes. The problem is that at the end of the roll, when we're doing the manufacturing, we noticed that there were, 150 meters, because they come in these huge rolls, and then they kind of wind them down. Yeah. The last 150 meters, we've seen that there's problems. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
Why would you, A, ship it out, and B, why wouldn't you tell me, hey, Zach, look out for this? They don't tell you. They just sit there and keep their mouths shut until we come to them and say, I'm having a problem. They're like, oh, we know the problem already. Don't worry. It's okay. Listen, next order, we'll discount for you. I'm like, What do I do with all this shit?
Look that up on you.
Yeah, what do I do with all this? And we're not talking like, Sean, if you're buying from me and you're like, oh, Zach, I got these 2 crap rolls. Well, I'm just going to give you new ones. But I don't have 2 rolls. I have 250, 300, 1,000 rolls that now is useless. And they're like, just discount it. I can't discount it. Nobody wants this garbage.
It goes in the dumpster.
Trash. Like we've had
Crazy.
some shipments for like $80,000 of this is garbage. And this now leads to a next point that I think is important. You look at, for example, some customers, right? And they're not shopping the dealer. They're shopping price. And they're like, well, Zach, listen, I can get the film myself from China for 40% less, and I can buy the machine for 50% less. So why don't I just go direct? I'm like, okay, first off, you're going to fail. I don't care. Sean is so technical and so into his equipment, and he failed on his own. So if you want to try, great. I wish you all the best. Buy today. Hopefully you get your shipment in 3 months. Hopefully the one that they sent you has the boards that are hooked up properly. Hopefully you actually get the entire machine. Hopefully you get the model that you actually ordered, because sometimes I would order a container and it'd be a different model, different color, different. I'm like, what is going on here? This is not what I ordered. So good luck with all of that. I hope that goes well. And then when you buy your whole pallet that you're air freighting and it arrives to you and the entire thing is shot, and then you have to come to me and buy more, then we'll talk. And what ends up happening is 90% of people are like, no, I don't want this. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a technician. My business model is to find customers and print for them. Well, if that's your business model, then don't get into importing your own product. And the reason why we need high margins is because we have a lot of waste. Okay. We have to have an infrastructure. We have to have technicians to support your never-ending phone calls from this Chinese equipment. And people don't understand that. Some people do, the people that understand business, but a lot of them don't. And then they try and go on their own. And then they call me 3 months later, hey, saying, Zach, listen, you know that machine that I was going to buy from you and I decided to buy direct? Yeah, well, listen, it's here right now and it's not running. Can you come and support me? I'm like, dude, I told you this would happen. Yeah, I'm going to come support you, but I'm charging $130 an hour for every single minute that I'm there. You know what I mean? Because I still have a relationship with them. I still want to see them succeed. I don't know if that's the right approach, but that's how I am. But now you got to pay for my time there, and it ends up costing them more. And instead of getting their printer and starting to print right away, they waste 6-7 months of trying to tinker. And then what happens is some people are like, I hate DTF. DTF is stupid. It's the worst ever. I don't know why I got into this. It's just like DTG, Andy. You remember those days, when it was T-Jet and all those. What were all those?
Like 3 T-Jets back in the day from Fresner.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same. Yeah, it was the same thing. People tried to cheap out or import direct, and let me ask a question now. When you walk into a shop in North America, do you ever see a Chinese DTF machine? No. I've been here for 5 years. I haven't seen one in any shop. Why? Because legitimate technology is out and it's phased out the old Chinese.
DTF or DTG?
DTG. Do you ever go into a shop right now and see a Chinese DTG machine that people order direct?
And that's kind of what I saw, years ago. Is this the Chinese got it early on, and that's what's coming out. But long term, this is going to be an Epson, Brother, Mimaki, Roland. It's going to be that game. There's going to be, I don't know, whether it's 6 months or a year from now or 2 years from now, nobody's going to be buying Chinese printers.
No, and I guess
it's just not going to happen.
Have you guys seen the video on YouTube? The guy that compares the M&R versus the Rocks.
Oh yeah. What's the name?
I forgot his name. They're really good. I think for consumers, like business owners like me that are on the fence of buying a Chinese machine or supported machine, a Mimaki or whatever the machine is from a supplier, I think the best way is to have videos like that. And there's not a lot of videos on YouTube about DTF comparing like the Mimaki versus the Chinese. I know like you guys, DTF SuperStore, have some videos, but most guy that's on the fence of buying either a Chinese machine directly from China or Mimaki, he's like, I'm not going to go listen to that video because he's trying to sell me a machine. Like,
right, sure.
Get it.
Yeah.
That's why I love the guy who's doing the video, the Manar versus the Rock. And as soon as we get our Mimaki, I want to make a video for business owners to see and understand the difference between us running that versus not running it, and why it makes sense for us as a shop. Because I just want to help shop owners make more money, right? I don't want them to go down the rabbit hole of spending 6 months with a machine and at the end not working. And I know, like, for us, we're going to go in Long Beach. We're going to, like, we go to all shows. Why? Because we want to see what's coming out next. We want to see new equipment. So I know that DTF SuperStore has an expo coming up soon.
Yeah, everywhere.
So I think, like, if you're on the fence and you want to buy either a Chinese machine or you want to have something that's supported and has a team that's there, maybe you want to go at the expo, right? And fly in and go see the machines running, go talk to some people. For me, my biggest mistake, like, in the industry starting, was not chatting enough, not going to those shows, because I thought I knew everything by listening to Ryan from Ryan online and just buying Riley Hopkins. Like, yeah, my biggest advice is go to the shows and talk to the people there, right?
Yeah.
So maybe,
and even now we see this
too, because
that's what I'm about to say. Talk to shop owners.
There are salesmen that will say whatever they got to say to get you in the door. And, with the Mimaki versus Chinese thing, to roll back to that, is we have a large customer that has 4 or 5 4-head DTFs from China through us. Yeah. And they were wanting to buy more, but they had quite a bit of downtime, the usual stuff with Chinese. And we worked a deal with them to send them a Mimaki. And they had those Mimakis for a couple weeks, and they ordered 4 more. And they're like, okay, now that we see it, we didn't really believe it at first, but now that we got a Mimaki, we see it. Because the first thing everybody says, oh, the ink's more expensive, it's a little bit more slow, this and that. And once we put one in that shop, they were like, screw this. We're at the Chinese market, and they bought 4 300s from us this week.
Wow. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that. I mean, people are, I'm just throwing numbers. These aren't exact numbers, but let's say I was selling the Chinese machine for 30,000, and now the Mimaki's 50,000. People are like, oh, do you just want me to buy the Mimaki because you make more money? I'm like, no, hang on. I don't think you understand how this works.
When I buy Mimakis than we did the Chinese print.
For sure, exactly. I'm like, when I buy from China, okay, and I sell it to you, my margins are way higher. So when I sell a Mimaki, although it costs more, I probably need to sell 4 of them to make the same amount of money as I did on the Chinese. And for obvious reasons. Mimaki,
and then your ink is a lower margin too. So I keep telling you.
Everything.
There's a lower margin, but hey, it's going to be better for both of us. Like, I'm going to have less hassle. You're going to have less hassle. You're going to be successful. And, the honest truth is you're going to use a lot of film. You're going to use a lot of powder. I'm going to make more money. You're going to make more money. And it's not some scheme.
No.
I think ink is 25% margins or something on Mimaki ink. It's not. It's not awesome.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And by the time to us and to you, it's 20-25%. You're not making your money on that ink, but your customer's going to be successful. You're going to be successful. Our tech support guys aren't going to. We'd sell a Chinese 4-head into somebody, and a tech on the phone would be tied up for days getting them up and running, training. Whereas with Mimaki, you send somebody out there, and by the time the tech's gone, they're printing.
Yeah, it's just numbers, right? You need those margins to be able to support those machines that need support, whether, like, compared to Mimaki, where I feel, and what I've heard and I'm excited to experience, is machines just run, right? They're simple to operate. They just run. So for you guys, obviously there's less margins, but there's less educating the client, trying to help them. And down the road, it makes sense for you guys too, because you're going to sell more machines. Because if they're up and running, they're printing, the guy's making money, right? So if he's making money, he's going to buy another machine. Instead of having like 4 or 5 Chinese, he might have 10 Mimakis down the road, and that's good for you guys, good for him. Quality's good down. Like, I think that's the right path for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like, I saw, first off, we were talking about these, Chinese machines. When we go do an install, I would literally send a technician with like a backpack with all the spare parts that would probably have to change. Like, I'm talking like, and I would tell customers in advance, look, when I install the machine, I might have to change a lot of things to it because the boards might be hooked up. It might be missing parts. These Epson i3200 print heads, sometimes 20% of them are dead right when you put them in the machine. So we'd have to go there prepared, basically with a machine on our backs, just without the shell, because we don't know what we're getting into. And talking about, one of the main driving forces, yeah, we make less money, but just like a printer should not have to spend all his time and energy into keeping a machine up and running, we as dealers don't want to spend all our time and energy into keeping customers up and running. Andy,
100%.
he did this really cool YouTube, not YouTube, like ad kind of thing, and I'm sure it made its way to YouTube, but it was like a trade up program. And it's like, are you sick of your Chinese DTF machine? Like, are you going to work every day and punching yourself in the face half the day instead of printing? Well, it's like, just come on down to DTF. And they had like literally, they were walking in the back and they had a Chinese machine. They just threw it and then they're just beating it with bats. I'm like, and then he's like offering a trade up program, and he's offering a lot of trade in. Like, props to you, Andy. I mean, we're talking about lean margins. I mean, you're basically selling stuff at cost, but it makes sense. And we're doing the same thing, because customers will call and they're like, hey, Zach, listen, I know this is the 550th time that we've gone through this already, but this machine, we have to fix it. I'm like, listen, okay, you've made your money on this 3, 4, 5 times over. Let's get you into a good machine. Let's get a Mimaki in there. Let's chuck this Chinese thing. I'll buy it back from you, and we'll get you into something that's going to run. And they're like, oh, what are you going to do with the machine after you sell it to someone else? I'm like, no, I'm going to set it on fire in the back. Maybe I'll pull some parts off.
I always try to stress that, as we bash the Chinese printers, is just 6 months or a year ago, that was the best option. And
for sure.
So you don't want anybody to lose sight of that, as that was the best option. If you wanted to be a DTF, that's the hassle you had to take. But now that Mimaki is an option, like the Chinese stuff's got to go.
For sure.
Who wants that hassle in their life?
Yeah. And, we were talking about, why Mimaki's better. And I think a lot of our users are probably like, well, why is it better? Just because it's made in Japan? No, there's technology inside of this equipment that A, is proprietary, and B, is, what's propelling the improvement in this equipment. It's not just because it's made in Japan. I mean, just a couple things to highlight. We're talking about ink, Andy. Yes, the ink formula, it's consistent, it's great, it's opaque. It's temperature and humidity more stable. You're not shipping it from China in the wintertime and it freezes on the container. You're not dealing with any of that kind of stuff. But another big reason is that the Mimakis come in the aluminum degassed bags. And people are like, oh, I don't want a Mimaki because it comes in the aluminum degassed bag and it costs more. I'm like, yeah. There's a reason for that.
Reliability.
You're not introducing air into the lines. So picture this. Right now, what does everyone have to do? They have to get their white bottle of ink. They have to shake it up like crazy. Also, they should be kind of rotating the ink like we have to do in our facility to make sure that the sediment. So you have to shake it up. And then what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to let it sit, for an hour. Then you should go back again a second time, give it a shake, then let it sit for 15 minutes, and then go and pour it into the machine. You think anybody does that? No chance. Some people forget to even shake it up. So they shake it, they pour it in there, air bubbles. Now what's happening? Air bubbles is getting introduced to the lines, start having head issues. Okay, and you're constantly replacing heads. Speaking on the heads, the Mimaki head has a proprietary technology, which basically allows it to not have any banding. And this is one of my biggest pushes. So when you go to these these trade shows, and before you'd see all these Chinese machines, no one ever has them printing until you actually want to see it print. They're like, okay, no problem. Let me flush the head, flush it. Okay, now I'll print for 30 minutes, and then I got to stop. Why? Because they're in areas, these massive convention centers. I don't know about you guys, but every time I go to these shows, I literally leave and my lips are chapped like crazy because it's so dry. So it's like a DTF printer's nightmare to not have the humidity in there. So basically, with the Mimaki, it has ink recirculation, the print head, the line, and the damper, okay, which will allow it to not get banding. And you will go to this show, like 2 shows ago, the Mimaki's not there. You have all these Chinese machines, everything's banding. The last show that we were at, there was, Andy, there was probably like 15 Mimakis there. It was like the Mimaki DTF show, basically.
Right.
And every machine is running, and there's no banding at all. It does not exist. And it's because of that technology. So it has independent nozzle dropout technology. So as it's printing, if one nozzle drops out, it does a cleaning mid-print and it continues to print. Whereas The Chinese machines, you can start printing and then you leave for 30 minutes for lunch.
Oh, you come back
and you
and then
come
you're
back and
screwed.
either A, the film is caught up in the heads and now you smashed up all your heads, or B, everything banded so your entire roll is shot. So when people are like, well, I don't want to pay twice the amount for ink, right? But at the end of the day, if you look at how much you're flushing every single day, how much waste in film, which really is where all the cost is.
You got to look at the total cost of ownership.
Totally. Head life of this. Mimaki saying 3 to 5 years per head. The Chinese stuff, 6 to 12 months, right? And that's if you're in a perfect environment. Yes, some people get more, for sure. I've had some customers that hit 2 years with an original print head, but the majority is in 6 to 12 months because you have, and this is probably why you might have failed, Sean. The DTF machines, the Chinese ones, need to be perfect temperature and humidity controlled. It's the most important thing. And I would tell, like, I saw these Japanese misters. They're called Ikuchi, I believe. I forget how to pronounce it, but it's these little green eggs that dry mist because you can't use wet humidity. Some customers would use wet humidity and everything will rust out. So we would literally sell. We got into the humidification system business literally to support our Chinese machines. My guys are learning how to install humidifiers with reverse osmosis systems because it was so important. And you don't have that with the Mimaki, which is another really, really big thing, right?
And like, so Mimaki's jumping in the market. Now you're selling earlier, like Epson, Brother, Roland, and all these big guys are probably going to follow because they have to. They all roll machines that print companies are going to come out, right? Where do you think like the difference, what's going to come next? Is it going to be like glitter paper? Like what's coming in the market for us that we can sell that's going to be different? Like the machines are like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they're all going to be good. Like right now, all the DTG machines are all really pretty good. Whether you get a Brother or an Epson, they're going to produce fine prints. They're simple to maintain and all that. So 5 years down the road, all the DTF machines, I feel like they're going to be like somewhat very decent, right?
Sure.
So
I mean,
what's next?
Fundamentals is what's going to change. You're going to have more reliable machines, more reliable consumables, and then you're going to gain some speed. I mean, totally. I don't think there's going to be some earth-shattering, like, oh shit, I did not see this coming. I think it's going to just be tighten all the fundamentals up. You might have something that prints 5 times faster, and then every time you put a roll of film on there, it just works.
Sure.
But the difference between an Epson F2100 and the T-Jet Fresner did 20 years ago, they kind of do the same thing, but the F2100 is a little faster and it can do it all day, every day, and you got a good warranty. But it's not like it's earth-shattering different stuff. So I think that's what's going to be. Glitter film and all that is such a low percentage of the market. I mean, it's gimmicky. It's a few percent of the market. You can use it for certain things, but
that's not where
we've that's our next. Yeah, we've been testing special effects films now for 2 years. There's a lot of different ones out there. A lot of them suck. We've narrowed down. We actually have a full special effects line coming in. So we'll have a glow in the dark. We're going to have a silver metallic, a gold metallic, a reflective, a couple glitters. Cool. Yeah, so that's on its way already. Like Andy said, it is more niche, but we do have a product for it. So I think that's going to be something new. The other, talking to what you were saying in terms of what's going to separate one brand from the other, speed. Yeah, speed's one of them. But there's a couple ways that they're going to attain more speed. They're just going to throw more print heads at it. And that's not always the right answer. Print heads are expensive, right? So do you want to have a machine that has 6 print heads, or would you rather have 2 machines that have 2 print heads each? You know what I mean? And have that redundancy in case the machine does go down, because all machines go down. I mean, that's why I'm in business. If machines were perfect, you don't need a dealer. You just buy the machine direct and you just plug it and you just make millions of dollars and you go to sleep every single night with no headaches, right? So machines go down. I do think that there will be advancements. Ink sets will continue to improve. Eventually the pricing will come down. So you're going to have, one of these other big guys, and then it'll become a price war. So right now, this is the cost per, 600 mils or 500 mils with Mimaki, but then Epson will release and Brother will release another machine. And then what's going to happen is then they're going to start slowly dropping prices. You know,
Well,
and
I think hopefully the prices can maintain to what it like. It's fairly cheap to get into the market for
so cheap.
DTF. I think like it's crazy, right? You want to get into screen printing by an automatic press and all that. You're looking at like a few $100,000 compared to DTF. You can start with like 60 grand. You're up and running pretty much. Um,
Yeah,
what I hope as a business owner that comes out is more like a hexa color, right? Some orange, some green, so
yeah.
that we can hit those harder colors that are super hard to hit, like the teals, the blues. Those are the worst. Like with DTF, those are the worst. And if you're able to dial in like your color spectrum, I think that's your secret sauce as a
That-
shop owner is really dial in your profiles. But it takes times. And I mean, there's not a lot of shop owner that want to dial in data. So if you're not dialing data, you're probably not going to go and dial in some profiles. So if you
yeah,
can go and dial in some profile, that's going to be killer.
and that is going to be the next advancements. So, you
Yeah.
know, and again, this is me looking into a crystal ball with Mimaki. I mean, the next obvious thing for them to do is to add, you know, more colors to hit a wider color gamut. You know, eventually companies will start introducing spot color fluorescence. So, I mean, that's a big thing as well. So they'll
Yep.
have, you know, the fluorescent yellow or green or blue or pink. So, you know, you might get an 8
Wider
channel
spectrum.
machine, and you might have the ability. It'd be awesome. Again, I've always wanted to see this. I don't know if it's going to happen. You know, I always want to see metallics in DTG. Obviously, it's difficult because of the, you know, the granular size of the pigments in the ink, but that'd be cool if somehow one of them could figure out how to do either silver or gold metallic. I think that could be huge. So yeah, but what I see now, it's like, but the first struggle of DTF was we need a reliable printer. Okay, great. Mimaki's come to the rescue. We have one. Fantastic. Okay. Now, the next problem. Okay. Printing's great. Now, how do we apply these things faster? And
Yep.
we luckily have partnered with Stampinator for quite some time. Sean, you use them. And that's a game changer. For those of you guys that don't know, this is originally a piece of equipment that was intended to be used on a screen print press to smoothen, to flatten fibers, and also act as a flash if need be. And it's basically a heat press. And Andy, I think I told you about this. I'm like, hey, if you're not selling this, man, get on it, because you have screen print shops like Sean. He doesn't even do any screen printing on it. I have customers that buy brand new presses. I sold a brand new M&R automatic. The customer is never going to screen print on it. He bought a $50,000 heat press essentially, but he's able to, like Sean, when you're pumping on your auto, like how many transfers are you getting an hour?
Well, if we have 3 operators, we're able to run 505 shirts an hour. If we're 2, it's around 380, 385.
So
It's nuts. It's seriously, it's insane. Like to be able to transfer DTF sheets at that speed, you're more profitable than screen printing with high volume.
totally.
Because of those machines, right? And like our operators on our Stahl's Hotronic dual air fusion are able to hit around 40 prints an hour. I could do 65 to 70 because I'm
Own the
I'm
place
really
and you
good
want
at
to
it.
make money.
Yeah, but I mean that's okay. Like I mean the shop, like the operators don't need to run those speeds. But if you have the Stampinator, you're really getting to real money with DTF because you can run really fast. And for us, like having our 6 color 8 station raw, just printing screen printing didn't make sense. So we stopped using that for screen printing. And now we solely use it for DTF transfers.
For sure.
And
And we brought in heat presses, like rotary heat presses. So my first one that I had, which we've sold out of, is the 4-station single heat plate and rotary. So now it's basically like an automatic. We have our newer version coming in that we've already pre-sold a bunch. It's a 6-station, 2 platens. So basically, you load the shirt, you apply the transfer, it heat presses it, you peel it, and then does a second press. So that'll start to increase output. But I think the next real big, tribulation that the industry needs to come over and figure out is faster ways of cutting the transfers. So that is what we are working on right now, on looking at several different solutions. So basically, you print your transfers onto the sheet and then loading it into, like we work with Suma. Suma has a solution. We're looking at a couple other ones as well with smaller footprints and less inexpensive. You take this sheet, you put it into the cutter, it literally just cuts everything out, drops into a little basket, and now you could apply them. So that's the next focus for us and probably the industry. So it's interesting to see how things have developed. It's like first we need to find a reliable printer. After the reliable printer, then we have to figure out how to apply it faster. Now that we can apply it faster, Now, how do we cut it faster? So it's just interesting seeing how things are developed. And eventually it'll be, and then again, this is what's going to make it more and more enticing to switch over from certain printing technologies to DTF.
And I think like after that, you get into like, okay, large print on demand shops that are going to want to get into DTF. Then it gets into like it's more complicated because it's not a pre-treated shirt that just goes right into the DTG machine. Like you need to print the sheets beforehand, and then you're probably going to bin that print as an item, and then you're going to go and pick your shirts, bring those together in a bin, and then go and stamp those. So there's just a process that's going to like a learning curve that's going to have to get done for a large volume print on demand with DTF. I think larger shops that just print large volume DTF is simple, right? It's a stack of sheets, you just go and print. But for print on demand, that's going to be a big learning curve. And like for us, that's where we're really dialing on like how are we going to do this? And then you get barcodes so we can print the barcode with DTF machine, scan that. So I think that's the future, and people that are really want to get that dialed in are going to be able to scale with that.
For sure. For the POD guys, that's still the challenge right now. It's like, okay, well, for one-off POD, DTG is faster. But as you know, like Andy, congratulations. Andy stepped out for 3 minutes there. He just sold another form of Mackey's. That easy. Customer came in to drop off the check. So
the vacuum cleaner that was going.
And he stopped the vacuum cleaner. Yeah. He just went. Andy's printing transfers like crazy for samples, and he just remembered he ran out of powder, so he had to top that up. But every transfer came out without banding, so that's great. Andy, we were just chatting quickly. You know, the evolution was, okay, now we got a good printer. Now we got to find a good way to apply a transfer. Now the focus is how do you cut better? So that's our big focus right now. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see how quickly things are moving along. We're really excited to see what's going to continue to kind of develop in the space. And it's going to be a wild ride.
There needs to be a software solution, like you said, Sean, that can scan it. You know, Rock, you're familiar with Rock because I think you have a couple of Rock presses, right? Yeah. So they're kind of addressing the high-speed pressing of it. Maybe you guys talked about that, but there really need to be a software solution, and then you got different cutting, like some of the big flatbed cutters, but they're like $250,000 that will take a roll of film up there. You can have your marks, and it'll cut it out. I saw one over at Mimaki that they do for their samples, but there really needs to be a post-processing solution, whether it's QR codes on it or whatever. Like, how do you take
I think it's
one-off orders, and then you cut it, and then you resort it in not a big way, and that's something that we're trying to look into.
Like I could probably help you guys on that because I've spent sleepless nights trying to find a solution because we do want to offer DTF for print on demand, and when you start and you run 30 orders in a day of like DTF, it's simple to keep track. And I mean, you can scan your order, you can open it. You have 11, 12, 15 people running the shop, and like it's simple for them to handle. But when you get 200, 500, 1,000 orders in a day of like one-offs, and then you need to pick your shirt and go find that print in a bin, and it gets complicated, right? So now just having the options of like batching DTF prints together, and they each have their own QR codes, and that QR code is matched to the order number, and then it's binned in a row with the last number that you have on that QR code. So for example, here in our shop, we have numbers 0 through 9. That's all bins. And then the job is printed with the QR code with the number at the bottom. Whatever that number ends. So for example, if the job is 2022, it goes into the bin row number 2, and we have 12 bins high. So I have 10 rows of 12 bins high. So I have 1,200 jobs that I can have at the same time in my shop that I can go and pick and pack and find, right? But it's super simple process. Like, okay, what's the job number that I just picked my shirt? It ends with a 2. I'm going to go in the row 2, and I only have to look into 12 bins. Take that shirt and go stamp it. So it enabled us to be super, super efficient with one-off DTF prints. And I think that's the hardest process. Like every shop owner that wants to offer print on demand or like smaller quantities is like, okay, how am I going to handle this with volume? And then like Zach and I think Andy, you were guys saying like the machines, like the cutting machines are $500,000, but if you buy that machine, it's because you have the volume for it.
Yeah.
Right. So it just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's
the software that you're using to make that all come together, Sean.
oh,
So
here's the first plug. The first plug for one of our sponsors.
Did
Andy
I?
yeah,
doesn't even
so
know yet.
I didn't even know it.
No,
uh,
here comes a plug.
so we use Print Simple for all of our print on demand, which is insane. You can you can itemize orders by single order workflow for DTG, which is beautiful, right? You scan everything, everything pops up, the artwork pops into your machine, you can print it. But then when you have DTF,
When you
it's
say it pops into the machine, you're talking like it integrates
the
with
brother.
CAD-Link?
Well, we use Graphic Lab, but yeah, you could use CAD Link, whatever you want, right? So that works perfectly for DTG, and I think that software was probably super simple. Well, not simple, but it was a lot easier to build than compared to DTF, because DTF, what do you do if, for example, it's Christmas and one of your clients sells 1,000 shirts of the same design? You want to run them on your Stampinator, right? Because it'll be a lot more profitable to stamp them all at the same time. So what the system enables you to do is every time there's multiple designs in your system that pops in, for example, in the last 3 hours, you can batch load those orders to print at the same time in a zip file. So it zips the file up with one QR code. That QR code follows through the shop. So it goes to like my DTF printers. You scan it, it opens up, it tells you to print 300 of that same design. So in the machine, it prints them with they all have individual QR code under each print. That's the best solution. So before they were like, okay, well, if we print the QR code there, it's going to be more labor intensive because you're going to have to cut it out. So what we did is we actually simply taped the QR code. So we still stamp it with the sheet and the QR code there, but the QR code just never transfers on the shirt because we taped it. So that's how we're being efficient with it.
You end up with a bunch of sheet or shirts at the end that have no QR code on them.
That's fine because all I have to do is small, medium, large. All my shirts are QR code, but they're itemized when they're picked, right? So I don't need the QR code from the print anymore.
Okay.
Because my shirts are picked and they're QR code and they're put in a bin. And then I go and find my bin of my shirt with the bin of my print, and then I go and print them. If I have small orders, it's one off, one off, one off, one off. I don't need to do a batch production worksheet, right? But if it's single item, if it's a batch production, so one of my clients sold 300 of the same design during that Christmas day, and then we batch that, and then we stack all those shirts. So all those shirts are still itemized individually because we're going to have to ship them individually anyways. It's just that my printing is done in bulk. I think that's the future, and I think, yeah, it's a really cool software. We're lucky to be one of the first to use it, and yeah, it's just being able to play around with it. I think when you get into software, it's more of like, okay, am I going to be half-assed my feet into it, and like the other, I'm not going to use it completely. No, you just really have to jump into it and use it fully, and that's where you're going to see the advantage of the software. I think if you're playing and you're dipping your toes into it and you're not sure, you're using Inksoft, you're using something else, that's when it's going to be complicated, right? Because you're not using all the features. And for us, luckily, like we have enough people that in every department. So all the QR codes, all the scans are being used in every single department, which I feel helps a lot. If we were a team of 5, I think it'd be more labor intensive to actually scan everything and notify everything. So we're pretty much a perfect size. And I think if you get bigger, it's just even better because everybody's in every department. But yeah, for us, it works fine.
Yeah, you'll see. So Print Simple's been running in Canada now for a while, Andy. I think I mentioned it to you a while back.
Yep.
It's ready to launch into the U.S. now, and there's nothing in the market like it. I'm very confident to say that. So it's going to take the industry by storm. I'll hook you up with Dave at some point just to show you, because obviously, I mean, every one of your customers could massively benefit from Print Simple. So it'll be we'll eventually have Dave on here from Print Simple to kind of talk a little bit about the technology. Sean's really planning on almost developing I don't know if it's a business or like a mentorship program around the technology, because he's been looking. I mean, Sean, you've gone through like what, Deco, then Inksoft, then back from Inksoft, then to Deco, and then ShipStation, and then like how many softwares have you run that Print Simple is going to basically replace?
It's actually how much money have we spent on finding the right solution is a lot. So we first started with Inksoft, then I went to Deco, Printavo, and then from Printavo, we went back to Deco and then to Inksoft because the UI was better. But then you get a lot of volume. And I'm not there to bash anybody. I'm just there to say, like, each software has its strength. And I think for like small shop that are just starting, mom and pop shop, Inksoft is great. The UI is great. Your customers are going to like it. It's going to be simple for them to go and order online. If you want to just run bulk, I think Printavo is really simple for your team. Shop management software. The calendar's super nice. The notes are super nice. But I mean, that's more dialed in for bulk. If you want to run online store and sell stuff and you have a large volume, I think that goes probably going to be the best. And if you want to offer POD, then nothing can be Print Simple. I mean, Print Simple is the only solution that can offer you to link up to your suppliers, not to your suppliers, to your customers' website, have them sell your products, link it to a product in your catalog that you sell. It's charged to their credit card automatically. It does all the invoicing automatically. It's the best POD fulfillment software available. More than ShipStation. I mean,
it replaces ShipStation. It manages your accounting.
Yes.
It manages your inventory. It manages your pick and pack, your automations, your workflows, front end solutions, team stores, like literally everything. It's the solution to replace all other solutions. Everyone's, and we had to do this too when we had to develop our own solution. It's like, okay, well, we got ShipStation, and we got QuickBooks, and we got this, and now we have to use Zapier's and integrations. Everyone's just Frankensteining different pieces of technology together. But to do that successfully, you have to have some development skills or a developer on staff.
100%.
So now it's like, okay, again, like same principle. You want to print shirts, right? You don't want to be a technician, buy Mimaki. Same thing with this. You don't want to be a software developer, just go with Print Simple, and then everything's all in one place. So yeah, we'll touch a little bit more on that at some point.
And is it perfect? Like, is the software perfect in the sense that everything works? And no, I mean, there's always going to be pain point. But what I like the most is that the goal is to make it better. Is to make sure that we as printers make money. I think that's why I like talking to Dave a lot and building the software. It helps us make more money and be more profitable. And he's able to listen to me and be like, "Hey, Dave, man, when we go and print DTF shit, like we need to have a binning system. We need to have the batch system." And he's like, "Okay," and he's listening. He's like, "Okay, I'm going to talk with the dev team," and they build it, right? They make it.
And they don't sleep for 2 weeks, and then it's built. So
it's insane. So
very quick.
Andy, I think you should probably just sign up just to go play around and be happy to be able to show that to your clients. It's something I think every shop owner that wants to go into POD should have for sure.
Definitely.
And
our biggest customers don't actually press the shirts, so I don't know if it works for that or not.
Oh, it would.
Not even rolling up the film; they're just separating the orders, and so when it comes off the end of the dryer, they cut it and then they throw it and cut it. So I don't know if it helps.
There's even solutions in the works through Print Simple to basically offer you the front end solution to offer transfer services. So basically, it'll have your gang builder, you upload it, customers pay you, and do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a very robust solution.
And now I'm having some ideas. Now all of your clients could link up their clients through a store, and then when their sheets are printed, they can go and have that delivered to them. It could pop in their Print Simple app. Now the sheets are received. Here are the shirts that you need to print. Now
nailed it.
I like business, right? I like.
So enough technology talk, because we're here for DTF, and although it's all related, I know. Yeah. Look at Sean's smile; he's so excited. So, anyways, let's wrap up. DTF Expo, February 23rd and 24th. Andy, tell us what it's all about. Tell us what role you're going to be having out there. Should people get out there, and if so, why?
No, I think definitely if you're looking to get into DTF, you should come out. We tried to get the biggest names and everybody that's got something going on in DTF. We filled up all of our vendor space. We actually went into a waiting list on it. We're going to be there. Mimaki, Roland, M&R, Rock's coming, Supercolor's coming. Cadling's going to be there. SAI with Flexi's going to be there. SNS Activewear, Kingdom DTF. So, there's going to be plenty of vendors to go around and talk to and see what the newest equipment is. There's going to be some people that are printing wholesale transfers. You got people like Dennis Moon's going to be there. He's been printing DTF since
he's one of the other godfathers,
according to him. But I mean, he's very open to the idea of sharing what's worked for him and what hasn't worked, so that he's a good person to have there to show what works. Some of our
Dennis
other big
Moon's built a
customers.
great business. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he really
I
has. And
I really like Dennis. I've had some conversations with him. Dennis, Sean, I don't know if you know Dennis, but basically he just started importing machines, printing transfers, doing a hell of a good job at it, and basically realized, like we did, that there's a lot of people that need support in this space. So I know he's got his own line of printers. I know he's got a vertical shaker that I believe he's has a patent on it, and yeah, he's been refining his own set of consumables, and he basically sets people up for success in the DTF space. So a competitor to Andy, I guess. Luckily,
yes,
he's on the other
that's
side of
fine.
the
That's
pond.
good. Good
Well,
for
not
everybody.
pond. That's the UK, but yeah, I mean the market's big enough. I mean even
Oh,
even if
100%.
Andy could have every single DTF machine on there, that would be a disaster. He would have no hair at all because of the amount of stress. Yeah, I was talking about your beard. The beard would fall off. His beard would be gone. There'd be no. He'd be a
It looked like
skinless
me.
baby. Yeah, he looked like Sean. Awesome.
But
Well, listen.
the whole idea of the expo is it's not about competition. It really is everybody that was DTF involved was welcome to take a vendor space. And
Love
Yeah,
it.
we just want to create maybe once, twice, 3 times a year. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But events that, even though the big trade shows are kind of becoming DTF shows, this is a chance to come and check out DTF. There's going to be free classes all day, every day. So, Jeremy from our place is going to be doing some of the DTF boot camps type classes. Yep. I think Joss over at Kingdom DTF is going to be touching on the desktop printer market. Dennis Moon is going to be touching on running a transfer printing business. I think the guys from SAI are going to be talking about RIP software. It's just going to be kind of a roundabout. If you want to come, you can learn some stuff for free. You can see some new stuff for free.
I think that's where shop owners need to go and get their education.
How many vendors, how many attendees are you guys expecting? Just curious how big. I'm debating. I actually got to be in China towards the end of February, but I think it's February like 27th. So I might zip over down there for the day.
Sure.
I obviously have a lot of good partners there. M&R is obviously a huge partner of ours, and they're really making some headway in the DTF space as well. I know they got some new things.
It'll be in the range of a couple thousand visitors. 1,000, 2,000 visitors. We really can't get more than that in the hall. 20, 30 vendors.
Cool.
Not huge compared to ISS or anything like that, but
it'll get there. It'll get there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a very intimate thing. So I think you can come in and you can legitimately go and talk to us in length. You can go talk to M&R in length. The guys from Supercolor that they have pioneered transfers, like they've done really well.
Yep.
You can go around and you can have that one-on-one where if you go to ISS on a Friday or a Saturday,
good luck.
There's 20 people like vying for stuff, and I think this will be, you can go and get your 10, 15 minutes or 20 minutes with every vendor.
It's more intimate.
Are you signing autographs there, Andy?
No. Nobody wants my autograph. I mean, maybe Jeremy that runs our YouTube channel. Everybody
I want your autograph. I'm gonna bring probably one of my Mimaki crates over here, and I'm gonna ask you to sign it for me. And I'm actually gonna have a plaque here. Actually, just so you guys know, I'm gonna get a signature from Andy. I don't know what yet. And on one of the episodes, you are gonna see it.
It's gonna be a tattoo signature. That's what we're doing.
Here. Exactly.
I want to get a signature and then print it with DTF with my Mimaki machine on a shirt.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Sean, listen, before I go down there, you'll have time to already print. Let's do this. You'll have your new Mimaki. Let's print something. 2 copies. I wear a medium, large. Yeah, medium's tight. And I'll print 2 shirts. You're going to ship them to me. I'm going to take them down to Andy. We're going to get him to sign it, and we'll either wear it or I'm going to have mine on the wall. How does that sound?
I'm down. I'll wear it. For sure.
Cool. Well, Andy.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for joining. Andy, thanks for coming. I guess if you want to follow DTF SuperStore, Instagram, YouTube, I think everybody's knows it pretty much. DTF SuperStore, and then InkPod podcast. You can follow us on YouTube, Spotify. We're not on Apple, Spotify now. Like Apple Podcast will be there shortly, but every
Figure it
Monday
out,
we're dropping.
Sean. Like,
I know,
this
I
is our
got.
second episode. How are we not on all the
I got to
channels
work
yet?
on it. I'm dropping the
Jeez,
ball.
stop running a print shop, okay?
I
This
know.
is priority.
InkPod
Awesome.
Podcast. Thanks everybody for joining, and hopefully you can make more money printing shirts, printing paper, printing sheets, whatever you want to do. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching. Ciao.
All right, thanks.